Yes, it's what I was about to say is that the meditation retreats, because of their history, tend to be a retreat that teaches generally introductory stuff over and over and over and over again. That the really deeper Dhamma has to be taught one on one, and that one of the ways is that the student meditates and possibly reads and then puts some stuff together, and then he goes to the teacher and they discuss it and whatnot like that. Um, and doing it this way is exactly the way that I worked with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa and Achan Po. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa actually spoke better English than Achan Po, but I got quite a lot of Dhamma from Achan Po. He was able to find just the right number of English words, or sometimes just speaking in Pali, because he knew I knew it. And he was really good with one-liners. But having this kind of conversation was what I had mostly with Achan Lee and also with Bhikkhu Buddhadasa. Um, and so I'm really pleased that I'm capable of doing that now in my old age, of just being able to talk about the Dhamma, and that the students gain benefit from that. They do the practice, that having that one on one relationship, even through Skype, it's like even a piano student. A 7-year old piano student will gain more by having a teacher that he has to go see every week than if he just wants to learn the piano. Because the teacher's going to give many, many different pieces of advice. But one of the most important qualities is the relationship between the student and the teacher. And this has been known and been passed down for many, many centuries. This is what we call the lineage. The lineage is that one on one personal relationship with the teacher, where the students can hear the Dhamma and get inspired by the Dhamma and can see the teacher having the Dhamma that he's teaching. And that gives the students inspiration to practice, to keep coming back over and over and over again. And just like in the piano, there are a few basic things that have to be learned, like chords and scales. In our business, we use sati to remember, to constantly remember to come back and be here now. That's the number one tool that needs the development, or the number one skill that needs to be developed, of learning to be here now over and over and over and over and over again. Because when we're here now, we're paying attention to what's going on, and that's when we're going to see what's going on. That's what Vipassana really is to be able to have insights because we've got our eyes open and we're looking. We're not lost in thought or lost in space or lost between the ears. But in fact, we can feel the feelings in the body. We can feel the sensations. We can feel the feelings, to recognize that oh, I don't have to feel this way. I can feel any way that I want to feel. And that's quite amazing, because even in psychology, people don't understand. They try to understand their feelings, but they don't ever see them so clearly that they can recognize that they can change them. And so this is the real teaching of the Buddha, is that we can actually get in there and fix the problem because we can see what it is. But in a way, the seeing what it is not actually just seeing with the eyes. It's a different kind of seeing. In fact, there's many kinds of seeing. One of the ways that I learned about seeing was working on an automobile or working on a motorcycle, trying to put a screw back in place where I cannot see that screw. I cannot see the hole that I'm putting it in. All I have is a tactile sensation to know what that screw looks like with my fingers and know how to feel its way into the hole. But that's a kind of seeing, because in the mind's eye, we're actually creating a picture but the sensory input to create that picture is coming from the fingers. Okay. So we see in many, many ways. So this insight meditation is not seeing directly with the eyes, but is being able to see the things that are deep within. And that it doesn't take as long as a lot of people think. One of the biggest problems of all, in fact, is when you think about it, oh, that it's going to take many, many lifetimes in the sense of physical lifetimes. But when we speak in Buddhist terms or in Dhamma language, a lifetime only lasts about 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds. Sometimes it lasts a couple of days if we really, really get our minds just grinding in on or obsessive about something. But we come out of it. But when we have the idea that it takes many, many lifetimes of real lives, then the challenge seems way too daunting, and that there's not going to be any immediate results. So all of the things that I do are not of any value right now. They're going to be only of value in the next life, into the future. And so you can see how defeatist that attitude is. If we recognize, oh, wait a minute, the karma machine doesn't work like that. That the karma machine is not built that way, but this is the idea that people have, in the sense that a good action is a good action, and it will give a good result if you wait long enough, even until the next life. The other idea is that a bad action is going to give you bad results eventually, no matter how long it takes, even if it has to wait in centuries or into the next life, it's going to get you. And so this mentality is problematic, and people cannot make any progress that way. But when we recognize karma from a different perspective, that karma is basically, in reality, nothing but a cause and effect relationship that happens right quickly, very, very quickly. An example would be nutriment or food. If you don't eat, you will die. If you eat food, you will live. That's cause and effect. And that cause and effect happens over a short number of days. If you don't drink water, you'll die. That's another one. So the nutriment of water will keep us alive. But there's another one, and that's breathing. Breathing is a nutriment. If we don't breathe, we're going to die, and it's not going to take a month. It's not going to take 3 days. It's going to take about 10 minutes or so. And you can imagine, you've probably been underwater, but you can imagine being underwater, and it's time to breathe. The body wants to breathe. And yet you know that if you do breathe, you'll actually breathe in water, salt water, and that's not going to be good at all. That's deadly. So you have to hold the breath until you get to air. And so that causes a desperation. That desperation that we have is that self-preservation instinct in full tilt mode. Desperation to get it done, to get to the surface so that we can get that breath of air. This is how vital that nutriment is. But when you recognize that everything has nutriment, everything, even the laptop itself has nutriment, many kinds of nutriments. The processor has data as nutriments. It's got electricity as nutriments. It's got a program or software that's nutriment. All kinds of different nutriments come to make the laptop work. And that's just basic components. If you want, we can go down to a list. I think I can name you 100 different pieces that go into making a laptop. So all of these different nutriments become to make a system. And systems are either opened or closed. And the planet Earth is an open system, which means that it has energy coming in from all kinds, not just energy, we've got meteorites and all kinds of stuff that come in and take effect. But the open system that we have keeps it vibrant, keeps it alive. And so the energy from the sun is kind of a nutriment that sustains the life of the earth. That if without the sun, the whole earth and all the life on it would die out. So this is what we mean by an ultimate cause-effect relationship, and everything has causes, and everything has effects. And when we misunderstand that and call it the law of karma, then we're lost, because there's another kind of karma, the third kind of karma. And that third kind of karma the Buddha talks about is both bright and dark. And it gives both bright and dark results. Now, what we mean by that is that no individual action is 100% pure, purely good. And to no action is 100% purely bad, that almost all actions have results that are mixed. And oftentimes, mixed, which way that you look at it, is depending upon your point of view. An example of that would be a play on a field, a sports field, and a particular play happens, and one group of people loves that play, and the other people hate that play. That just and it's an instant, and it happens, and this crowd cheers and this crowd boos. Maybe a tackle or whatever like that, or maybe a bad call by the referee. And I call it a bad call only because half the people in the stadium called it a bad call. The other people on the other half of the stadium, they loved that call because it was to their advantage. So this is another issue about how can we tell what is something that's purely good, always good, and every time that action is performed, it always gives good results. And the same with bad. But in fact, there is no actions that are like that. And that is one of the linchpins that reincarnation is built on. It's built on the premise that an action that is good has to be fulfilled, and we've got to bring you back to life in order to give you that good result. Or if we've got a pending, because you've done a horrific thing, a bad action, the karma machine is going to have to bring you back to life just in order to punish you, even if that life that they bring you back to is hell. But when you understand that, wait a minute, karma doesn't work like that. It's not an action is neither good nor bad wholly by itself. That there's always mixed motives. That even a criminal, if he confesses, he'll come up with his reasons for doing it. When he did it, he thought it was a good idea. So that's the reason that karma winds up being mixed. And that's enough. In fact, that third law of karma, that mixed kind of karma, is absolutely enough to destroy the other two. That once we recognize that things are complicated, they are not simple, that lead to simple changes like that, then we can begin to see, wait a minute, maybe things can be done now to get benefits now. So this is the whole slow mindset that has to change. The mindset of one who is stuck in a world of rebirth, reincarnation, magic, is actually the world of a victim. The world of a victim is actually created from the position that the victim believes in magic and believes it exists. He just doesn't have any. Therefore, he feels lack or loss or missing something that he doesn't have that he thinks he should have. But when we understand there is no magic, then we can give up our desire for it. And so this is part of the practice. A major part of the spiritual practice is coming out of our beliefs and coming into living in the reality of the moment. But that sometimes is hard to do. But meanwhile, I'd like to introduce to you a fourth kind of karma that really nails the thing shut. Because the Buddha is talking about there's a fourth kind of karma. And that fourth kind of karma is a karma that's neither bright nor dark. And it leads to results that are neither bright nor dark. Now, this is a very, very sophisticated place. But he adds a kicker to it, and it also leads to the end of karma itself. It leads to the end of action. An action that is neither bright nor dark, that gives results that are neither bright nor dark, other than it leads to the end of action altogether. Now, this is profound in a way. So let's go through the details of it. First off, when one gets to a certain place in one's life, one no longer is interested in deliberately doing wrong things or bad actions, taking revenge or whatever like that. And not only that, but if we're Dhammarato, then we recognize, oh, the big goal is suffering and no suffering. Therefore, it's my job to not create any suffering. Therefore, my actions are automatically not going to be dark because I don't have any intentions to have actions that are dark. But there's something else there too, and that is that when we come out of our belief systems about doing good for future benefit, then we no longer try to make merit. We no longer do Tom Boone. We no longer store up our treasures in heaven. We do not do good things in order to get in the future some kind of good result. Because we can see that that's just horsepucky. It's magical thinking. Why do I want to open an account and putting the money into the bank that I cannot go to that bank and get the money back out of it until after I'm dead and the bank is closed? So long as I'm alive and the bank is open, I can't get my money. But when I'm dead and the bank is closed, now I can get my money back out of the bank. Does that make any sense? And yet that's what the religions teach. That's what Christianity and Hindu and even the Buddhist religion teach that. But when we recognize, oh no, if I'm going to do something good, I want to get the benefits from it right now. Immediate. Not even 10 years from now. Never mind 10,000 years from now. Want immediate results. That's when we're beginning to look at things from correctly. But now here's the thing. If we are no longer engaged in trying to do good, and we are no longer out trying to take revenge or trying to fix things that are broken, then we actually start to do less and less actions. Because most of our actions that we were doing were the kind that were mixed motives, or wanting to do good, wanting to do bad, and so we come to a state of relaxation. This is actually the goal of the Buddha, is to be happy, content, relaxed, satisfied, cool. I like the word cool because that's the word that translates from the word nibbana. Just relaxed, happy, nowhere to go, nothing to do, and the spring comes and the grass grows by itself. And even when the grass grows, it doesn't need me to cut it. Now, this is exactly opposite to Western society, and I imagine that it's fairly opposite to the Chinese government's philosophy, that they want to put everybody to work, make everybody productive, so that each individual can get the benefits of their labors. Now, that's back into that karma machine again. doing good things in order to get good results later, get people jobs. And you can see, in fact, with the job, that the paycheck, we work all week in order to get the paycheck at the end of the week. We're not getting the benefit of doing the work while we're doing the work. We have to wait for the paycheck, and that's our benefit. Wouldn't it be a much better lifestyle to say, okay, whether I work or not is not the point. The point is, when I'm working, why not enjoy the heck out of it? Why not really, really like what I'm doing? Therefore, I'm getting the benefit of doing the work right now while I'm doing the work. And if I don't get paid, I got my benefit anyway. Because sometimes we don't get paid for our work. Sometimes that karma machine is broken. Sometimes promises are not kept. Sometimes things go bankrupt and shit happens, and we can't count on that karma machine coming through for us. We got to count on getting our benefit very, very quickly. And so this is what leads then eventually to the lack of, or to the loss of action, is because we become more and more content, more and more satisfied. And the way that we do that is by remembering to do so. So that's the very first step of meditation, is exactly also the very lifestyle that we're trying to create. It's not a goal out there. That's something fun. I see students with this all the time, that they come to me with kind of the underground thought that I want to become enlightened. I'm doing this meditation practice to gain some future benefit. If I practice enough years, I'll become enlightened. This is very much like the American and I suppose all Western mentality, I suppose, is very common in China also. You do this and later you get that. To where it takes then a subtle change in attitude to recognize, oh no, I'm practicing meditation right now for the benefit that I'm going to get right now. And part of the benefit I'm going to get right now is the development of the skill of sati so that I can do it more often next time. And so when we remember to breathe, we also remember to drop away all of the stuff that we were thinking about. All of the comic kinds of actions that I want to do, old problems I want to fix, new plans for new actions I want to take, and we throw all of that stuff out of the mind. So in fact, what we're saying is that we throw the karma machine out of the mind too, and we come to enjoy this present moment. And part of the effort that we need is a joyful effort rather than, oh, this meditation stuff is so hard. Oh, again, my mind has wandered away. Why can't it stay fixed on the... You can see all of the suffering that is brought into that through expectations. And so we have to take the right attitude and the right effort to put into that, so that when we do see the mind wandering away, we can say, I got it. I see you. The mind has wandered away. Out. Get out. All that stuff. I'm going to be here now. If we can do that, that's the only thing that we ever need to do. So that no matter how obstructed the mind is, or no matter how upset or uptight or in suffering that we are, if we can remember to come out of it, then we can come out of it. The trick is how soon can you see it so that you don't have to be all the way stuck in it in order to come out of it. This is there is a point, in fact, in Western Buddhism, there is a statement that's used often, and that statement is often used as to let go. Have you ever heard of that expression in English? Let go?
Yeah.
Which would be like, yeah, turn loose. You could also, if two people, one is grasping another, let go of me, or turn me loose. That letting go. Now, that letting go, that quality of letting go, means that something is already hanging on. There's already a hanging on that's happening. And so the letting go is the dropping of the clinging. This word that we use in English is clinging. That word has become very, very popular in Western Buddhism. Very common, the word clinging. Grasping and clinging. Grasping is this, and clinging is really grasping, really clinging and holding on to it. And this is the place where everybody starts, not just Buddhists, but everybody. For instance, two people are in a fight. If one of them doesn't recognize that, wait a minute, things have gone too far. In other words, if both of them continue to cling, they'll continue to fight until one of them's hurt. And maybe not even then, because of the clinging going on. But people do let go of the clinging that they had. And as we begin to practice meditation, we learn to let go sooner. We can see that clinging sooner because we keep remembering to look and remembering to look. And so if we remember to look right at this particular time when we see the clinging, we can let it go. But if we remember to look at the time when it's starting to cling, when it is in the approaching of clinging, we can start it before it actually grasps. And so this is the practice that we work with. And if we can see that wanting in there, then we can also see that there was a motive or an energy behind it someplace. And that motive or energy behind that wanting that became grasping is actually the feeling. The feeling, I like it, then becomes the feeling of, I want it. And then that feeling grows to, I gotta have it. And that's when this is happening. I gotta have it. This is mine. And that's the self. I gotta have it and this is mine is the self that does the clinging. Until that clinging happens, there's a good argument to say that there is no self. That until that time, there's nothing but processing going on. But once the clinging happens, the self arises in order to do the clinging. In that regard, you could also go so far as to say it is the self that does the suffering, or that the self is the vehicle or the wiring that gives the suffering. And if there's no self, there's no suffering. It's only when we're trying to protect something, when there's a danger and we're trying to protect it. What are we protecting? We're protecting our perceived self. And so this is why the Buddha was so big on talking about the self, is because the self, actually, there's the word selfishness. If there is no self, there's no selfishness. And if there is selfishness, that's also associated in English with grasping and clinging, in the sense of, this is mine. I'm being selfish with it. No, you cannot have a piece of my donut. I want the whole thing. All right, so that's where the suffering gets. Because if you tell somebody who really wants a piece of your donut, no, you cannot have any of my donut, I want the whole thing, that's when you're going to have a fight. That's suffering. When you got two people wanting the same donut. And that donut may be a religion. That donut may be anything. But you can see how, and in fact, sport teams, that's a place in especially in Europe, where people get into fights. Is because one likes this sport team and the other one likes this sport team, and if they meet each other, they'll try to kill each other. That's another proof, by the way, that there is no truly good action or truly bad action, that all actions are mixed. Attachment to a sport team is a mixed bag. And it's mixed in the way that this guy is attached to this sport team and this guy is attached to that sport team. And now we've got an issue that's not really over which is good and which is bad. It's more of an issue of which is mine. Because that's the basic mistake that we make, is what is mine is good, or never mind whether it's good or not, it's mine. Mine is more important. Mine outvotes good. But we make the mistake when we say, or when the feeling is that I like it, then the liking becomes wanting, but it also becomes a judgment in the sense of it's good. And it's good because I like it. Now, you can imagine way back in primitive times when monkeys were tasting fruit, that they would eat the fruit that tasted good and they would not eat the fruit that did not taste good. Or the plants that were too hard to eat, we don't eat them. We eat the plants that are easy and enjoyable to eat. So from the very, very early parts of the mental formations of animals' brains, we started making the judgment, if I like it, it is good. And if I don't like it, it is bad. This, in fact, is the whole Bible story of of Adam and Eve. Not Adam and Eve in the people that's in the story, but in the eating of the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. In the sense that here I live in a paradise. This is a wonderful, wonderful paradise. Except that I see on this particular tree, there's a leaf that's turned yellow. So it's almost paradise. It's not quite paradise. Wait a minute. I see a limb. If you can see what I'm doing, I'm taking a paradise that actually is a paradise. I'm finding something wrong with it, one little thing at a time, until I finally destroyed the entire paradise. This is what happened to Adam and Eve, is their judgments. I like this and I don't like that, is what destroys paradise, rather than being satisfied with the paradise that we're in. This is the story of humanity. The story of humanity is that somehow or another, being quite satisfied with the world as it was, we woke up to that I don't like it. And that gives rise also to all the problem solving. So we wind up being restless inside, thinking that there's a problem to be solved, and that if I solve that problem, then I will feel better and won't feel so restless. And then I get the idea, maybe if I go and fix the fence so that the cow cannot get out, then I'll feel better. So I go out and I fix the fence. Then I come back and I sit down and I still feel that anxiety. So I say, okay, what is it that causes this anxiety? If I go do something, I can get rid of this tension and this anxiety inside. Well, what we know now from Dhamma is that the discomfort from inside, or that's inside, comes from inside. Doesn't come from outside. It's not the fence that needs fixing that's causing this turmoil inside. The turmoil comes because I'm in the habit of having a turmoil. Has to do with
I have a curious question.
Okay.
I think in one video, you talked to Natalie.
Natalie, yes.
Yeah. Because she was asking something about the arahants. You said that some arahants prefer to live alone and to stay away from the crowd. If some suffering are mind-made, why would they try to stay away from the crowd?
Well, let us say that everyone is at different stages of purity. And if someone reaches a state of purity of mind, but they know that they're still susceptible to outside influences, then it's better for them to avoid those outside influences. And yet it is quite possible Even Jesus talks about it when he says that you can be in the world but not of the world. And that in fact, generally, uh, it's kind of rare um, for a monk like that to spend 100% of his time in solitude, but rather he spends quite a lot of time in solitude, but he does, let us say, do the things that would be expected of him, especially early in the morning at the temple. But that here's another aspect, and that is that um, within a certain group of monks, especially in the sense of who's the teacher and who's the older of the students. This is not general knowledge, but it's known within a small group. And and therefore one of those will be set up as he's the go-to guy. So that when people come to the temple that they need something from the temple, he's the go-to guy for them to deal with. Now, this go-to guy may be one of two kinds of people. More than likely, he is one of the senior students who is going to also benefit himself from dealing with the problems of the people. And then there's another kind of monk who will not deal with the people because he's not going to gain any benefit from being around any of those people. He would really rather be off to himself in solitude. And that can mean either he's a much junior student or he may be a extremely advanced student. But in both cases, they want to be away from the maddening crowd because they're getting no advantage for themselves, or are they giving any advantage to the crowd? And so things are a little bit complicated that way, but in general, yes, there are arahats who would much rather be in seclusion. Even the Buddha, and there's a sutta, I think it's number 122, uh, and it's also on sunyata, or the emptiness, is where the Buddha actually states that when dignitaries, princes, important people, Brahmins, or important people from other religions, any of those outsiders, not talking about his own group of monks or his own group of lay followers, but when outsiders come, when he deals with them, he answers their questions in such a way as to dismiss them and get rid of them. As opposed to instruct them and teach them deeply. Because there's other monks that they can get the kind of instruction that they need. That they do not need the Buddha to give them introductory. They can get that introduction from somewhere else. So even the Buddha doesn't want to deal with the beginners or the outsiders. And so he'll answer their question, but only in the sense of being able to dismiss them, get them satisfied, and get them out of here. And so in that regard, the meeting may last 10 minutes instead of an hour and 10 minutes. Does that answer your question? Or did we lose? Seems to be good here. Frozen. Let's end this call.